Okay, my friends, we're going to dive in. It's 1 minute after the hour. And so here we go. Welcome to the March webinar for Selfistry. And I decided to title this one, Help! My Self-Help Isn't Working. Because this feels like a really important topic as far as what a lot of people are really struggling with and don't necessarily even know how to, don't really even know how to name really what the struggle is. So let's just start at the very beginning and let's talk about what is self-help. What do I mean by self-help when we say your self-help isn't working for you, your program? So the self, this sense of selfhood inside of us, its natural capacity is to develop, to grow. I mean, you just watch a child. You don't have to convince it to crawl or to walk. You don't have to entice it to, to get excited about a flower or food. It's just natural. It's a very organic and normal part of who we are to want to grow and to want to blossom and to want to develop. And just because the physical size of our brain stops growing in our mid-20s does not mean by any stretch that we stop growing. And there's a huge distinction in psychology, science, philosophy, and spirituality in these times between the brain and the mind, right? So there's all of these ways that we can develop and explore well into adulthood, into old age, and even through our death, potentially. So first thing, self-help is natural, organic, desirable, pleasurable. So let's talk about what self-help looks like in 2019 in our modern age. So normally what people do, I'm going to put normally in quotations, what people do for their personal growth or personal development are things like therapy, yoga, maybe meditation for some people, philosophy for some, reading. A lot of people just like to read, which does, just so you know, thinking about stuff does have an impact on your actions and on your body, can, okay? For some people, it's a spiritual path that they seek to help them grow and develop. For some, it's life coaching is a big thing now, retreats. So there's all sorts of, body-mind therapies and techniques to grow yourself. And usually what people are looking to is become better at something, right? So maybe your self-help program is about, maybe you have a tendency to be angry and you want to work on an anger issue. Or maybe you have this critical voice in your head that you want to get rid of because it gets in the way of every aspect of your life. Or maybe you want to just be a better boss, or maybe you want to be a better parent, or maybe you want to be a better lover or a better friend. Maybe you want to be a better physical specimen and you want to work on your health and your diet and your exercise. Maybe you want to develop your creative capacity, your musical or art or writing. Excuse me. So just to recap for those of you who are just entering, is that we're just taking a lens and looking at what do we mean by self-help and what are the possibilities in all of the arenas that we want to grow and develop ourselves. And so that can take the form of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So there's a lot of room here, right? So usually what people do, and see if you can relate to this, is you decide what you want to work on in any of those areas I mentioned, or probably 500,000 other ones, and you search the marketplace, which is very crowded now with self-help programs and techniques, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But somehow you make a decision. Either a friend tells you, or it comes into your Instagram feed and you get turned on by it, you get excited about it, or you've done some reading about it, or you read a book, and so you take on a program, some sort of process or practice or technique to develop yourself. So if you're here, more than likely, what happens is you decide what program you want to do, you act on it, but it doesn't give you the results that you're longing for. So the tendency is to keep plugging away at it, right? Just if I only work harder, if I only do better, maybe I don't get it. I'm not trying hard enough, or I'm trying hard, but personal growth is difficult, so I need to try harder. So you just keep plugging away, keep sometimes paying money, giving time and energy, because you believe that this particular method will grow yourself in a way that you're longing for. So you go and you continue and you continue and you continue, and that's one thing people do, right? So they just keep at it, but they're still not quite seeing the results that they want. Another person, let's see if you can relate to this, what another person will do is just give up and just say, oh, forget about it. This personal growth stuff is just, it's for woo-woo new age people. It was a mistake for me to even think I'm fine just the way I am. I'll just settle. It's fine, really. I'm just not interested in all the work. And then there's this underlying resentment about that, or angst or discontent for the one who settles. Or maybe you find yourself saying, it's not me, and I'm certainly not going to settle. So I'll just go try something else. It's obviously just the program I've chosen, or the teacher I've chosen, or the timing of it, and I'll just go try another one. And so you open up the marketplace again on your Google or in your social media, or you go to the library, if anybody ever does that anymore, or the bookstore, and you find the latest books, and you get turned on by a new personal development program and a new teacher, and often with bright, shiny lights and big, shiny promises. And you decide, oh, that's why I wasn't succeeding. It's because I didn't have the right program. Now, all I need to do, get the right program, and I'm good to go. And you go and you pay the money and you start doing the protocol, whatever it is, and you don't get the results you're longing for. More than likely, often the teacher will say, well, keep at it. All right, just keep going. Just keep trying. Don't give up. Keep going. Don't keep trying. Don't give up. And then you cycle back into that first person that I described here that just decides, okay, maybe, it's just me, I'm lazy, or I'm just not working hard enough. And so that, really describes in general, and you can fill in the details of what most people experience who are discontent, right? Who are unsettled or unsatisfied with their personal growth, who have tried stuff. Okay, so see where you land. Are you the one who blames it on yourself that you're not developing and that you're not growing? Are you the one who just settles, and then maybe a year later, 2 years later, 10 years later, you can't stand it anymore and you pop up and you try something again, right? Or are you the third one that just keeps going from one teacher or path to the next, right? And in the beginning, there's some change and excitation, but then it's just kind of, oh God, the same old habit again, or the same old belief system again, or the same old pattern again. So I know it sounds discouraging, but what I want to say is, number one, you're not alone. This is really common. And despite the pictures and the stories that you see on your Instagram feed, right? Most people who have chosen to take a stand in their own personal growth or their own personal betterment, to engage in that process, end up here in one of those three categories: dissatisfied, discontent, unsettled, not quite aligned. Something's not right. Their lives don't feel integrated into whatever work that they're doing. It's not really showing up in their relationships or in their work. Everything just still feels really kind of all over the place and chaotic. So here's the thing, and this is what's super exciting about becoming aware of this, is, and it's gonna It's going to surprise you because it's so obvious in a way. And when it finally came to me in this picture, I was like, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. This explains so much. So the first thing that we're going to do, and this is the way to find a self-help program or personal development program that's really going to work for you, and that is take a step back, like a giant step back. So we're going to go meta. We're going to like pretend we're a drone, and we're going to go way up above, right? And look down on the whole self-help, personal development, personal growth field down here on planet Earth, specifically in this continent, the United States. Now, I know that there are people on the call in Eastern Europe as well. And I know people who, those of you who are watching it afterwards, may not have your bodies located in North America. So we're going to say developed countries, westernized countries. So those, so we're going to take a drone look on the whole self-help industry right now. And guess what we're going to see? The first thing that stands out in big blazing neon colors is this. We are all swimming in the sea of a Judeo-Christian mindset, okay, for millennia. Now, what does that mean, right? Some of you may say, oh, come on, Sarah, you know, I let go of, you know, my Catholicism, my Christianity, my Judaism. It's just not even that important. It's not relevant. And look, we live in a Western culture that we have freedom of religion and freedom of expression, and science is big, and you may be an agnostic or an atheist. It doesn't matter. We are all born into the soup of a Judeo-Christian mindset. And you know what that mindset is? It says you're born in sin. You have fallen from grace. It's your fault, specifically Eve's fault. It's women's fault, right? And okay, I'm oversimplifying this, people, so please don't come down really hard on me. But just stay with me from the drone perspective, from the big themes, right? You're born in sin. You're most likely going to hell. And if you are going to heaven, you have to do really specific things and do them well to get there. And you won't get there until after you die anyways. Okay. And there's tons of rules about how you need to be human in order to win God's favor and end up back in the garden again. Okay. So what does this do to our human psyche? It tells us we're not worthy. It tells us basically we're broken. And we're born this way. And the only thing we can do about it is follow these rules and laws to make ourselves better. So take a moment and just consider what we said in the beginning of this tea talk, right? In the beginning of this conversation, is that those of us who go to develop ourselves and end up hitting walls around that, very likely it's because there's an underlying belief that we're not worthy of getting better. We're broken. And so we just keep judging ourselves and keep trying harder and harder, but we're fundamentally messed up. Okay, now that's in our DNA, that's in our cells, that's in our psyche at a very deep level, no matter how conscious or awake you are, my friends. Okay, it's here. Let's see it. Let's take a drone perspective. Let's see it. Let's name it. This is the first step towards getting on track. Okay, that's number one, Judeo-Christian. And those of you who know me and know how much I love religion and spirituality, I'm not lambasting the whole thing, because there's so many gems and jewels that we want to pull and integrate and weave into the tapestry of being human in the new millennia. Okay, so there are old stories and narratives that are wanting to die out or to be upcycled, is my favorite phrase, to be rewoven into a tapestry that speaks directly to you right now, 2019. Okay, so that's number one, is the Judeo-Christian ethos. Okay, the second one is we live in a capitalist, patriarchal society, right? Based on or built on colonialism. So what does that mean? Okay, what's the underlying ethos of that? What's the underlying narrative? Number one, you can have and be anything. Okay, and if you work hard enough, you'll succeed. And you're entitled to it. Oh my God, that's such a huge one. And it's all about you doing it on your own. So let's just unpack those a little bit. So the capitalism says, it's free market. You can be anything, right? You just have to work hard enough, right? And you're entitled to it. You're entitled to have it all. This deep entitlement, which is so heartbreaking when we come up against it. And for those of us who have light skin, are really exploring that now in, the modern culture, talking about racism and white privilege. It's so beautiful that we're starting to get a drone view and starting to actually explore what's running us underneath, right? So when we talk about, let's say, the self blossoming, which is the natural and organic and healthy process of an individual self, we want to look at the soil that self is planted in. And my friends, it is poisoned. It is poisoned by this belief that we're broken and we're a piece of shit. And it's poisoned by this underlying belief that we're entitled to whatever we want. We can have anything we want if we just work hard enough. No wonder we're all kind of crazy. We're fighting against both of those, right? We can have it and we can't. We're entitled to it and you messed it up. It's your fault. Everything's shit from here. Like, really, that is the bottom line of the sea that we're swimming in. One other one that I want to name is just the general masculine, which is hinted in the patriarchal capitalistic ethos, is this underlying masculine story, right? Which is the superhero model, right? Superman, Batman, which is all over films these last couple of years, right? It's like being reborn, and now women are coming forward, Supergirl and Batwoman, and it's still this like superhero, like you have to be excellent in everything and have these superpowers, and like, whoa, people, like, get the drone view and just stop for a moment and go, hey, what are we doing? What in God's name are we doing? And we've taken these narratives and this ethos and this sea that we're swimming in, and we've applied it to our own personal development. And no wonder it's not working. Because that whole paradigm, that whole narrative, that whole ethos is no longer sustainable or working for the human race. Now, it's taking a while for all of us to get that drone view and understand that and be able to course correct. But you're here on this call. You're listening to this conversation. You are having tea with me, or a cup of water, or a glass of wine, and we're all going, wow. Together, we're going, wow. What is going on, and how do we meet? How do we fix? How do we resolve? How do we engage? How do we engage in the world in a way that honors our personal development, because it's natural and it's healthy and it's part of, who we are as human beings. So how do we turn the soil, till the soil, bring nutrients into the soil of our own personal blossoming, so that we can be a real service and connection to the greater good of all, right? Which is for many of us, and I see who's here, right? For many of us, there's this longing, like, how can I help? How can I help with climate change? Right? How can I help with sex trafficking? How can I help with the political polarization in this country? How can I help Venezuela right now? How can I help the victims of the latest hurricane or climate disaster? How can I help the poor person who's living on the street 3 blocks from my house? Right? And how can I have also this sense of personal fulfillment and personal development and personal success? And I suggest to you that the way that you can have both is by recognizing that they're intimately connected, and that your personal development is key to you finding your point of intersection with the greater whole. And the more the greater whole is really engaging the individual personal development in a healthy way, outside of these narratives we've spoken about, the more the two will feed each other and will grow a new garden of humanity, in essence, right? Everything is renewable here. We can begin again. It's not hopeless. And what we're doing here, and what Selfistry is really focused on, is helping the individual to get that drone view of like, whoa, oh my God, I've been working so hard to become a superwoman. And really, when I get quiet and go inside, I just kind of want to be me, like have a simple, cool kind of life and help out. Not, oh my God, I want to be the next billionaire and have the next startup and, you know, more coffee and more sugar and, you know, more yoga and more exercise and more trainings and more and more and more and more, which is also a sign of the sickness of our times, this more and more and more. One of my teachers said to me, such a beautiful teaching. He said, so growth at all costs. Like, did you ever stop and really think about that? Like, look at our culture and look in the world. What do we call a growth in the body? Something that's growing in our bodies at all costs. We call that what? Cancer, my friends. Like, just stop for a minute and make that connection. We are aspiring to grow and develop and get better and have more and be bigger and more money and more youth and more stuff and more, you know, degrees and more, you know, likes on Facebook and more followers on our Instagram and more and more and more and more. And we don't see the insanity or the sickness of that out in the world, but when it's in our bodies, it's cancer. And then what do we do with that? We want to fight it, right? We want to change it because, you know, growth is good but that growth is not. And we just kind of stay on track. We don't even stop. We don't even stop to go, do you see the insanity in that? So my friends, I'm suggesting that when your self-help program isn't helping you anymore, it's not because of you. And most likely it's not because of the program. It's because of how the program is not attending to the greater context and the greater shift and an understanding of what does it mean to personally develop in these times. 2,000 years ago, it looked very different. 1,000 years ago, it looked very different. And my friends, 30 years ago, it looked very different. I just heard on the news this morning, today is the 30th birthday of the internet. Only 30 years. Oh my gosh, we are developing so quickly and things are changing so quickly, right? It makes sense that we would just stop for a moment and just regroup and reassess and reorient and just take a look and say, maybe, just maybe, my friends, your personal development program isn't working for you because it's stuck in this narrative of you're not good enough and you need to be better, and or you can do it all by yourself, you're entitled to it, you can be anything. And what's happening is because we live in a grossly consumer marketplace is, you know, people are greedy. People are sick on the same poison, and they're selling us snake oil in the personal development marketplace. And we've all been a sucker for it. Big shiny promises, big shiny outcomes, big shiny testimonials, 5 simple steps, 10 minutes, you know, 10 simple minutes of this every day and you'll be enlightened by the time you're 20. I mean, it's just, when we're in it, we can't see it, which is why I'm suggesting that we get out and look from above or below or from outside, wherever. Just take a look. So I'm going to pause for a moment and just see if there's any questions about that, because that's basically the gist of what I wanted to bring forward today, as far as why we're in this mess we're in, or what is the mess that we're in. And then I'll see if there's any questions, and then I'll just talk a little bit about, so what do we do? So what do we do? So take a moment and see if you have any questions or comments about that, type them in the chat. Take a sip of my tea. I'm an Earl Grey girl, in case you wanted to know. So one question coming in is, how does Selfistry differ from the programs that you're speaking about? Well, that's where we're going anyways. So I'll answer that by basically saying that Selfistry is different because it does what we just did, which is it starts with a meta view. It starts with a stepping back and looking at what is a self, what are we trying to develop, how do we want to go about it, and what's the outcome we're looking for. It begins there. And then it names what we just named, which is all of the ways in which our personal development is being hijacked by the marketplace, by consumerism, by capitalism, by Judeo-Christian belief systems, right? So we're being hijacked and our attention is being pulled in all these different directions. So the first thing we want to do is see that. And the first thing that happens, and see if you could feel this right now, is there gets this huge relief. Like, oh my God, I can stop. I can stop racing and running and striving, like spinning my wheels, right? And I can just rest. And don't worry, you're still going to have to work. You're still going to have to, but effort made towards something that's realistic and accomplishment, you get the fruits of the labor in the labor. That's a really good sign, my friends. When the labor that we're working towards is a phantom, is an illusion, is a fantasy, we will not yield the fruits within the labor. We will be constantly being promised that the fruits will come later. And this is a really important sign. When you're doing work that is really nurturing your personal development in the way that we're talking about, that is aligned with who you really are and aligned with all life, right? Or the potential for all life to blossom or to evolve or to thrive, you will reap the fruits as you labor. The labor itself becomes a fruit. So the first thing we do is name that, acknowledge that, relax into that. And then we sketch a very simple template, a framework for how to discover, uncover, recover your unique personal self blossoming. And we name the components of that into 3 realms. Those of you who are familiar with the work know about the realms. We have the realm of source, which is where we originate from, the breath that breathes us. We have the realm of self, which includes all of the belief systems and stories and ideas and drives and passions and yada, 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 yada of this individual self. And then we have a realm where consciousness lives that we call the witness. And what we do is we begin to explore those 3 realms as 3 aspects of our human beingness. And it's as if we're going back to, if we keep the metaphor of the soil, it's as if we're going back to the essential nutrients of what makes soil healthy. And we're going to feed those core essential nutrients so that the blossoming can happen organically. How many of you are farmers out there? Right? I remember going years ago when I had a garden, going through permaculture and going through the Master Gardeners program and spending my own time like digging in the soil and tasting it and trying things and watering in this plant and that plant. The key was in the health of the soil. Now, can't do it without rain and sun and a healthy plant as well, but so much of the key was in the health and vitality of that soil. So in Selfistry, we're going to get back into the soil, and the soil that we grow in, that we live in, that we breathe in. And then we discover together, we self-discover. And there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of subtlety to everything I've said today. So this is a tea time. I'm giving you a broad stroke and hoping that you'll leave today wondering about, whoa, am I approaching my self-development and my personal growth based upon the foundation that I'm not good enough? That's a good question. Might want to journal about that. The other question might be, am I approaching my personal growth and my personal development based upon the foundation that I can be anything I want? Right? Both of those are lies. Both of those are fantasies. Both of those will not yield fruit. Not in your labors or not when your labors are done. You'll be laboring your whole life in discontent. So I don't care if you're 90 years old or you're 10 years old. It's never too late to reorient and begin again. And therein lies my hope for humanity in general, right? We are clearly an evolving and emergent species. And we're moving and evolving and emerging quite swiftly right now in this new millennia. So it behooves us to slow down and take a look at how we can reorient, how we can redirect, how we can regroup, right? So that we can continue to blossom and develop individually and as a species. So we relax with this understanding, we regroup, we create a new framework to play in, and then we self-discover and we emerge and we work to, I used the metaphor earlier and I'm going to keep it because it's a really beautiful one. We weave a new tapestry. So we don't have to make Judaism or Christianity wrong. They're not wrong. They're totally valid and legitimate for what they are. And they're quite exquisite and beautiful for what they are. We just need to see them for what they are and acknowledge what we need now. Okay? And every epoch in human history had to do this, had to tweak, right? What came before, had to modify, had to evolve, had to include and then transcend into something new, something that really met the needs of the time. Right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're being called to do. It's exciting. It's a little disorienting and a little scary at times, but mostly it's exciting. It's enlivening. Like I said, those fruits come with the labor. My life is amazing. Okay? So, yeah. That's it. We can do that. We can do that for ourselves and for each other. So what I want to say to you today is, if this resonates for you, if this turns you on, if this makes sense in any way, first of all, you can, put your hands up, give me a shout out, say thank you. Second of all, you can join me in the Intro to Selfistry course to get more involved and engaged in this conversation and in this inquiry and applying this to your personal life. Because once you reorient like this view and this understanding, all of the things that you've been doing can apply. Meaning if you're already doing yoga for 30 years, you don't have to throw out your yoga. All you're wanting to do is reorient how you're engaging in your yoga practice to develop yourself. It's a subtle move, but it's profound. And again, we don't have to make capitalism wrong. We don't have to make yoga wrong. We don't have to make Superman or Batman wrong. We're not making any of them wrong. We're seeing them for what they are and reorienting ourselves in these times. Okay, so the Intro to Selfistry course starts April 3rd, and it's on Wednesdays for 7 weeks. And that will give you a fuller view and an understanding of how to use Selfistry to help you orient yourself on your path. One of the things I love about Selfistry that I don't see changing anytime soon is that we're really kind of a boutique learning environment, and classes stay small. So remember, going back to that notion of all growth is good, I'm not interested in scaling Selfistry so that I'm in front of 10,000, 100,000, a million people. Not at this stage of the game. And I don't imagine at any stage, right? Because I know that this kind of work takes attention and intimacy and connection. So I'm interested in knowing you. I'm interested in knowing the nuances of who you are in order to guide you and support you to find the program that's really going to develop you and yield the fruits that you long for and that you deserve, right? So if this resonates for you and you decide you want to take that intro course, everything's on the website, selfistry.com. But if you sign up between now and midnight tomorrow, so tomorrow's Wednesday, March 13th. If you sign up now, between now and midnight tomorrow night, I will send you a personal signed copy of my book. And the cool thing about that is it's not required reading for the course, but it is suggested reading. And that's because it shares my personal story, which is very universal. The details are mine, but the universal story that we kind of just talked about today. You know, this coming up against, you know, striving to become somebody and it not really working out, and having to come up against that and how this particular individual was able to get a drone view and get perspective and find her way back into her humanness and engaging in the world with selfistry is what is my gift to the world and my engagement in the emergence of our species in these times. So I'd love to have you in the next course. There's a fall, a spring, a fall, a winter, and a spring. I run that course. And again, it's small, never more than 20 people, intimate. You'll get personal attention and you'll get group leadership and you'll get to learn the system of selfistry to see if it's right for you. You can always contact me via the website to have a personal consultation at no charge to see if we're a match. And you can always just come and hang out with me here monthly for my monthly webinars. You can sign up on the website for my newsletters, which I send out. They're actually notes that I send out every week. And occasionally I might show up in your hometown for a workshop or a talk. So I hope today was helpful for you in reorienting your view about why your self-help program might not be helping you. And I'm super excited to share this work and to be engaged in this, in these times that are very tumultuous, but very ripe with possibility. And I have faith that the universe is big enough and smart enough to inspire us to our greatness. So you don't have to do it alone. You can't do it alone. That's a superhero myth. So join the Selfistry community if there's resonance for you. I'll take one more question. Yeah, no questions coming in. So if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact me. And then again, sign up for the Intro to Selfistry course. It's called Know Yourself. It begins April 3rd. All the details are on the website. I'd love to send you a book. I'd love to share my story with you. And more than anything, I'd love to have you feel well supported on your journey to your most magnificent self that does not have to look like a superhero and does not have to be run by feeling like a piece of shit, okay? So you're not broken. You can do this. I love you. Take good care, and I hope to see you.